Howdy folks, it's controlled leak time again in World of Tanks. Today I'm going to be showing you some of the new additions to the French vehicle tree that we can expect to see at some point in the future in World of Tanks, as well as a couple of premiums and a couple of new Soviet and German vehicles. We're starting off at Tier 2 with the new French Tier 2 light tank. Actually one of two new French Tier 2 vehicles, but only one of which I'm actually allowed to show you. And that's this one, the FCM-36. The one that I'm not allowed to show you is the Renault R35 at Tier 2. Wargaming want to reveal that one themselves with a historical article on the main World of Tanks portal, but this is the FCM-36. It's a Tier 2 light tank, and it's fairly typical of the low-tier French light tanks. There's absolutely nothing light about it. It's a slow machine. It will only do 24 km per hour, but it is very, very well armoured. 40mm at the front, hull and turret, and very, very well sloped. In fact, the turret is a very, very tough nut to crack. It's 40mm all around. The hull armour at the sides and rear is only 20mm thick, but that's not bad for Tier 2, and as you can see, it's very, very well sloped. It gets a choice of two guns, one 37mm cannon with 34mm of penetration and 40 average damage, or a 25mm cannon with 46mm of penetration but only 27 average damage. However, it does have a much better rate of fire and a very, very good aiming time. Both guns, of course, are horrendously inaccurate. It's a Tier 2 vehicle after all. Next, at Tier 3, we have the Somua S35. This is a Tier 3 medium tank, and this is a tank that is so ugly, when it was born, the doctor slapped its mother. Despite its questionable looks, it does actually seem to be quite a decent little Tier 3 medium tank. It's reasonably mobile. It will do a listed top speed of 45 km per hour, but unlike the AMX-40, that top speed isn't a work of fiction. It will actually manage to approach 40 km per hour on level ground under its own steam. Although reaching that 45 km per hour top speed, it does need a bit of a push. It's also pretty well armoured, although the armour profile is kind of weird. The back of the turret is actually where the strongest armour on the tank is, 60mm. The rest of the turret isn't bad, it's 40mm front and side, and the front of the hull armour is 47mm, with 40 at the side and 35 at the rear. The tank comes with a 47mm gun, which has 66mm of penetration with standard ammunition, will do 55 average damage. The accuracy starts to get under control. It's still not great, but 0.38 accuracy on a Tier 3 machine isn't bad, and it does have a very, very good 1.7 second aiming time. So, providing you don't mind driving one of the most butt-ugly tanks in the game, this is actually not a bad little machine. At Tier 4 we have the SARL-42, and I can't help but find it amusing that a nation that has such a reputation for beauty, style and elegance somehow managed to produce tanks that look like bulldogs licking piss off a nettle. This tank is so ugly, if it was a dog you would shave its arse and teach it to walk backwards. As a Tier 4 medium French tank, it is not particularly immobile. It has a listed top speed of 40 km per hour, but it seems to have a reasonably weak engine. It kind of struggles to reach that speed. It's also not particularly well armoured. Both the hull and the turret are 40mm at the front and only 30 at the sides and rear, and 40mm of armour is pretty impressive on a Tier 2 machine, but not on a Tier 4. It does, however, have 5 different guns to choose from. Now, the stock gun and the first 47mm gun that you unlock on this tank are nothing special. However, before going to the turret, you do get the option of going sideways and unlocking another 47mm gun that has 106mm of penetration. It also has 0.36 accuracy, a 1.9 second aiming time, and while it only does 55 damage per shot, it has a rate of fire of over 27 rounds per minute. The remaining 2 gun upgrades are pretty lacklustre by comparison. The first 75mm gun is pretty terrible. It only has 74mm of penetration, and the theoretical top gun on the tank, another 75mm gun, while it does have 100mm of penetration and 110 average damage, it is horrendously inaccurate and has a long aiming time by comparison to this side upgrade 47mm gun. I suspect this is the gun that most people are going to be using on this tank. At Tier 5 we have another medium tank, the Renault G1, and it's a little baby BDR, isn't it? Just look at it. The turret's a dead giveaway, as is the name. The G1 seems fairly consistent with the tanks that have preceded it. It will do 40 km per hour, but it does seem to have a reasonably powerful engine, and the armour profile on the tank, while the armour isn't particularly thick for Tier 5, 60mm at the most, it's also 60mm at the least. This tank has 60mm of armour, front, side and rear, turret and hull. What makes the Renault G1 interesting is that, like the SARL42 before it at Tier 4, it has an optional gun upgrade that you do not have to unlock in order to progress to the next machine in the tier, which incidentally is the ARL44 at Tier 6. You get to the ARL44 by unlocking a 75mm gun, which is your typical Tier 5 medium tank gun with 100 penetration and 110 average damage, but if you choose to unlock the optional gun upgrade, you get what looks to be a 105mm howitzer, which does a whopping 410 average damage. Now, I can't tell you what the ammunition choices are for these guns, I don't have that information, but I suspect high explosive and high explosive anti-tank. 410 average damage with high explosive and 350 with high explosive anti-tank. It is horrendously inaccurate, however, with 0.53 accuracy. But it will pump a shot out just under once every 10 seconds, only has a 2.5 second aiming time, which isn't bad for a howitzer, 53mm of penetration with high explosive, 104 with high explosive anti-tank. So this is the new French light tank and the French medium tanks leading up to the ARL44 French heavy tank at Tier 6. There are a further 2 new French medium tanks being introduced into the game, and you're going to get to them via the AMX 1390. And those 2 new French medium tanks are the long-awaited release of the French AMX 30, coming in 2 flavours, the prototype version at Tier 9 and the full-blown version at Tier 10. The AMX 30, seen here at Tier 9 in the prototype version, actually has a lot of similarities with the German Leopard 1 main battle tank. France and Germany actually entered into an agreement to develop this tank together. However, the agreement fell apart when the Germans decided they didn't want to use the French 105mm gun and went their own way and ended up developing the Leopard 1 main battle tank. The AMX 30 is what resulted from the French development. It has a lot in common with the Leopard. It does not rely on its armour for protection at all. It's all about the mobility. Now, unfortunately, I can't give you exact numbers and figures because Wargaming neglected to provide me with a tank stat screen the way they did with all of the other French machines, but you can see it easily reaching 60 km per hour here. Armour-wise, once again, I can't actually give you any figures for the hull, but I can tell you that the turret, certainly the upgraded version, has 80mm of armour at the front. And, well, that's as good as it gets. The side and rear are absolutely terrible. This is definitely a lot like the Leopard, all about the mobility and nothing to do with the armour. Without access to the exact figures provided by Wargaming, I'm having to go from what I know historically about this tank. It was designed to weigh 36 tons, and I do know that it gets an engine in-game with 720 horsepower, so the power-to-weight ratio on this machine is going to be very, very, very good. It is definitely going to be a very mobile machine. As far as the firepower is concerned, it has a choice of 2 guns. By default, it comes with that old standby, the 90mm F3, which you get on the AMX 1390. You can also fit the 100mm SA47 that you get on the AMX 5100 and the AMX 5120. But the new kid on the block is the 105mm gun, which was pretty much what the AMX 30 was all about. And it's not a bad gun at all. 0.33 accuracy and 260mm of penetration, firing its default ammunition, which is likely to be APCR. 320mm of penetration, firing what should be high explosive anti-tank ammunition. And the reason I say should be is because the high explosive anti-tank ammunition that was fired by the AMX 30 was actually very, very special, and is what made this tank unique. But we'll talk more about that when we look at this tank's big brother at Tier 10, the AMX 30B. The gun also has a 2.3 second aiming time, 390 average damage, and fires at just a fraction over 1 shot every 10 seconds. Moving up to Tier 10, this is the big boy, the AMX 30B Tier 10 French medium tank, completely different from the Batchat. The B in the title indicated that this was the production version of the machine. Nearly 4,000 of these things were built worldwide from 1966 onwards. It's a 36-ton tank with a 720 horsepower engine. It will do 65 km per hour. It will traverse at 48 degrees per second, the turret traverses at 38 degrees per second, and it has a 410 metre view range. Armour-wise, 80mm at the front of the turret and the hull, 35 at the side of the hull, 30 at the rear of the hull, 40 and 30 at the side and rear of the turret. Again, like the prototype, this thing is not about the armour, it's all about the mobility. The gun is, well, no great surprise, it's the 105mm, but it's an improved version with better soft stats than you see on the version at Tier 9. It has a rate of fire of 6.74 rounds per minute, the same 260 and 320mm of penetration, 390 average damage, but the accuracy is 0.3, which is phenomenally good, and 2.1 second aiming time, which is also very, very good. What made this tank unique was the high explosive anti-tank, or if we're going to be completely 100% accurate, the high energy anti-tank ammunition that this tank fired. It had a smooth bore gun. This tank was developed in the 1960s when pretty much everybody apart from the British, because the British loved their Hesh, were switching from rifled tank guns to smooth bore tank guns. Now the problem was if you were going to fire high explosive anti-tank ammunition, and pretty much everybody was firing high explosive anti-tank ammunition, which is why this tank and the German Leopard didn't bother putting any armour on, because it would have been a complete waste of time. If you're going to fire high explosive anti-tank ammunition, that ammunition has to spin in order to be accurate. So straight away you can see the problem that if you're using a smooth bore tank gun, you're going to have issues making your shot spin. Now, every other country in the world other than France solved that problem mostly by using thin, stabilised high explosive anti-tank rounds. The French went for a completely different solution. The French went ahead and designed a completely unique high explosive anti-tank shell, which was essentially two shells in one inside the other. Fired from a smooth bore gun, the outer casing wouldn't spin, but it was separated from the inner casing by a layer of ball bearings, and that allowed the inner casing to spin. And that meant that the French high explosive anti-tank ammunition was a lot more accurate than everybody else's, and that is probably why this gun has its 0.3 accuracy. So there you go, fact fans, the French, not just a pretty face. Even if they can't drive. Look at that. Yeah, here's some footage that we want to give everybody showing off the new tank, and here's somebody driving it off a cliff and writing off the suspension. GG Wargaming. Oh well, they're only human, I suppose. So, the French tech tree receiving some love at last after years of neglect, and that's going to make a lot of people very happy. Strangely enough, it's going to make a lot of German people very happy. I did actually meet a whole bunch of French tank enthusiasts from Germany when I went to Gamescom this year. They've been yelling on the forums for some love for the French tech tree for, well, forever. So their wish is finally coming true. So, we're going to finish off with a look at what I'm told are a bunch of premium vehicles which are arriving at some point in the undisclosed future. So what does Germany need as far as premium vehicles are concerned? Let's have a look at their tank destroyers. At tier 5 they've got the Stug 4, at tier 6 there's the Dicker Max, tier 7 the E25, and tier 8 the Jagdtiger Pak 43 88mm. So yep, Germany definitely needs another premium tank destroyer, and at tier 7 that's exactly what they're getting. This is the Krupp Steyr Waffenträger. It has 850 health, only weighs 14 tons, has a 140 horsepower engine, will do 35 kilometers per hour, turns very, very quickly, 40 degree per second traverse. The armour is terrible, 20 millimeters at the front, 10 at the side, 8 at the rear. I have seen more heavily armoured Ford Escorts, has a 380 meter view range, has a turret which turns at 32 degrees per second, and has the German 88mm L71 gun. It's probably fair to think of this thing as a tier 7 Rheinmetall Borsig Waffenträger. The comparisons are obvious. It has a turret, it has a mean gun. It's very small, it's liable to be very, very stealthy. It's probably going to be a royal pain in the arse in tier 7, 8 and 9 games. No official word that this machine does not have preferential matchmaking, but Wargaming are definitely taking steps away from introducing new vehicles that have preferential matchmaking and limiting the availability of those existing machines that do, which is why machines like the E25 are being removed from the gift shop. Next up, the British are getting some premium tank love as well. This is the A45. Hang on a minute, Jingles, that looks an awful lot like a Centurion to me. Well, you're actually not too far of the mark. This is the Universal Tank Concept A45, developed in 1947. It is essentially the forerunner of the Centurion main battle tank. Here in the game, it has the Mark III Centurion turret with a 17-pounder gun. And you'll be delighted to hear that the A45 follows on in the proud tradition of tier 7 medium tanks in that it has an absolutely god-awful gun. It uses the British 17-pounder, which isn't too bad on the TOG at tier 6 because that gets preferential matchmaking, and it's absolutely fantastic on the Valentine Archer at tier 5. But none of those have to fight E75s and ST1s. But hold on, Jingles. Other tier 7 medium tanks manage to make that sort of thing work. Well, yeah, other tier 7 medium tanks don't have a top speed of 31 kilometers per hour, do they? 171mm of penetration on a tier 7 medium tank that can only do 31 kilometers per hour. Oh dear. It had better be well armoured. Well, no. Sorry. The turret front isn't bad, 152mm. It's that old Centurion Mark III turret again. The rest of the tank? No. The hull has 76mm at the front, 50 at the side, 38 at the rear. The turret, as mentioned, turret front 152, 88 at the sides and rear. It's pretty much a one-trick pony. It's only going to be good, hull down, immobile, shooting at other tier 7s, possibly tier 8s, and hopefully not tier 9s. It's pretty much going to live and die at the whim of the matchmaker and the rest of your team. And I fully expect people to gift me this tank in the hundreds. Hey Jingles, I heard you like British tanks, so I got a British tank to go with your British tanks. Gee, thanks guys. Next, we have the Object 244. It's a premium Soviet Tier 6 heavy tank with 880 health. It weighs anything between 44 and 49 tons with a 520 horsepower engine. It has a top speed of 42 kilometers per hour. This is a pretty quick tank. It's not particularly manoeuvrable, however. It will only turn at 28 degrees per second. Armour-wise, it has 120mm at the front of the hull, 100 at the side, 60 at the rear, and the turret 100 at the front, 90 at the side and rear. View range 340 meters, turret traverse 26 degrees per second. It is armed with yet another version of the ubiquitous Soviet 85mm gun, which fires at 10.53 rounds per minute, has 144mm of penetration, 194 with APCR ammunition, does 180 average damage, 0.35 accuracy, which isn't bad, and a 2.3 second aiming time. It looks like a pretty solid tank. Nothing particularly special about it other than the top speed, but certainly nothing bad about it either. Next, we're going to round things off with a preview of what they're calling the Berlin Trio, which is kind of bizarre because there are 4 of them. So, I don't know. Well, it makes sense. 3 of them are machines that took part in the assault on Berlin in 1945, but the 4th tank is, well, save that for the end as a bit of a surprise. No word on where these tanks are going to fit into the tech tree, by the way. It's up to us to guess, but you can probably make some educated guesses based on, well, let's have a look at the first one. This is a new Soviet version, so the Chinese don't have it all their own way, of the IS-2. So, how's this different from the Chinese IS-2? Well, the Chinese IS-2 doesn't have logs. It doesn't have a white stripe around the turret. It's an IS-2. You know what to expect. Mobile, decent armour, 122mm gun. Obviously the tank comes with a lot of cosmetic differences to standard vehicles in the game. At the side of the turret there you can see the emblem of the 7th Guards Armoured Brigade. The old white bear with the red star. It's one of the white stripe around the turret, which was common on late war Soviet tanks. As far as the stats of the vehicle are concerned, don't expect any surprises. It's an IS-2. It's got a 122mm gun with 175mm of penetration, 390 average damage. It's your standard D25T 122mm gun. The tank itself, again, no surprises. It's got 120mm of frontal hull armour, 100mm of frontal turret armour. It will do 34 km per hour. It's an IS-2. The only real differences are the cosmetic differences that you can see just by looking at it, and the fact that the IS-2 finally exists in the Soviet tech tree in a form other than an IS with an upgraded turret and gun. Second machine in the Berlin Trio series is a Tier 7 tank destroyer, the ICS-122C. It essentially is an Su-152 without the 152mm derp gun. As the name suggests, it uses a 122mm gun. 870 hit points, 600 horsepower engine and a 45-ton machine. It'll do 43 kilometers per hour. It doesn't turn very well. It's got 90mm of armour at the front and the side, 60 at the rear, 350 meter view range. The gun is exactly the same as the 122mm D25S Mod 1944 gun on the Su-152. 175 penetration, 390 average damage, 8.11 rounds per minute, 0.41 accuracy, 2.9 second aiming time. Absolutely no surprises whatsoever in this machine, other than the cosmetic differences that are obvious just by looking at it. Rounding off the Berlin Trio is a tank that is probably going to be wildly popular, certainly among the Polish community, regardless of how good it is. It's the T-34-85 Rudy. Why is it going to be popular? Well, apparently it's based on a tank from a very popular Polish TV show, which in turn was inspired by a very popular Polish book. I'm not going to waste your time reading out the stats. It's a T-34-85. It's a good Tier 6 medium tank. People aren't going to get it because they want the T-34-85. They're going to get it because they're a fan of the TV show, or they're a fan of the book, or they just like the way it looks. And I have to admit, I am quite impressed with the cosmetic job that they've done on this machine. Incidentally, apparently the TV show and book also featured a dog as a member of the crew. And there are rumours that Wargaming are going to include a dog as one of the crew members of this machine, and no, unfortunately, he's not going to get any special perks. And that, of course, brings us to the fourth and final vehicle in the... Yeah, I know, I feel stupid even saying it. Hey, this is Wargaming's words, not mine. The fourth and final vehicle in the Berlin trio, and that's the Cromwell Berlin, as you can see here. Now, I must admit, this tank confuses me greatly. Looking at it, there's a dirty great big white star on the back. It's painted in American olive green colours, but it's a British tank. Does this mean the Americans are getting a Cromwell in their tech tree? Well, I have to tell you, I have been over this tank with a fine tooth comb, and I cannot figure it out. There's an American helmet hanging from the side of the turret, but there's a British 1937 pattern webbing pack hanging from the other side of the turret, and despite the American insignia on the engine deck, it's got the British Desert Rats 1st Armoured Division insignia on the front and rear of the tank. So this tank has a severe case of schizophrenia. I have no idea if this is going to be in the British or the American tech trees. At this point, your guess is as good as mine. Whoever ends up having it, having another Cromwell in the game is never a bad thing. So, those are 13 of the 14 new tanks that are going to be coming at some undisclosed point in the future into World of Tanks. Don't forget, there is also the Renault R35 in the French tech tree. We haven't been given any information on the Renault R35 to show you, purely and simply because Wargaming want to unveil that tank themselves. They're going to be unveiling it on the World of Tanks portal, accompanied with a historical article detailing all the information about that tank. I hope you've enjoyed this preview of upcoming tanks in World of Tanks. As always, take care folks, and I'll catch you next time.